Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Outsider. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we're continuing the whole Jack and Holly thing. Now, I will admit, I didn't expect things to get so frank to the point where like Jack was just up front like, yeah, this is kind of what it is. Like Holly already kind of figured it out, but Jack straight up, it's like, yeah, this thing's kind of basically got control of me. He's even asking like why I picked him. Holly's like, well, obviously we know this thing feeds off of pain, and it's like, well, you've got a lot of pain. I don't know what it is, who hurt you, and or how many times you've been hurt. And he's like, well, it's my mother for starts, which makes sense because once again, it's what I brought up last episode. I was assuming the person that was kicking his shit out of him, even though that was all in his head, that, you know, this El Cuco's like psychic abilities. I was like, that has to be his mom. So it's a byproduct of like a lot of, you know, it seems like that was probably a thing that his mom abused him a lot when he was younger. So it used something that he's so afraid of, something that caused him so much pain and fear, to escalate his pain and cause him even more pain. So that's what I'm thinking. So it makes you wonder, has every time that he's ever gotten hurt or something, has it manifested his mom? Has it always been a thing, or is it just this particular instance it manifested his mom? Kind of makes you wonder. But it's also interesting because obviously you see Holly can tell like none of this is what you want to do. The fact of the matter is you're kind of being controlled in this situation. But it's like the fact of the matter is when no one else believed me, you did. The fact is you didn't even have to take me to that meeting, because even I was wondering, it's like I was thinking, it was like, well, Jack knew he could take you to the meeting because you literally said, oh, a sneak preview, no one's gonna believe me. So I think Jack just assumed, that's what I was thinking. But it's like, no. She's like, you could have dropped me off there. You didn't even have to take me to the meeting, but you dropped me off there. And when everyone's kind of doubting me, you're one of the few people that jumped to be like, whoa, maybe there's something to this. And she was trying to understand why. It's because Jack was hoping, he was like, I thought you would know more about this than you do. He was hoping that, hey, maybe she has some solution, how to kill this thing, how to fix this whole situation. Because obviously the only other answer to this is following the same path that Heath did. And, not Heath, his cousin did. And obviously, you know, that's what worries Jack, is he kind of like, is that literally the only way out of this situation, is to kind of die in that same manner? So obviously, you know, and every time Jack just kind of like trying to fight back about like not doing things this way, kind of finding another way, the pain kind of sears up, and it's the thing just kind of tightening its grip a little bit, like, no, you're gonna do what I say. And even Holly recognizing like you're in so much more pain because you stuck up for me, like you didn't follow 100% what this thing wanted you to do. And even she asked like, what did it want you to do? It's like, he's like, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little spying for it, stuff like that. At the same time, you know, Jeannie's asking Ralph, it's like, yeah, Holly, she just up and left, like, aren't you kind of worried or something? He's like, no, like, she's a bit girl. And Jeannie's like, call her and check on her, because Jeannie's a little more worried about Holly than, you know, Ralph is, just because Ralph is so caught up in thinking like Holly's crazy that he doesn't want to really listen to anything that she has to say. But obviously Jeannie is a completely different situation, because she's like, no, like she believes in Holly, so she's like, because she's worried because it's like the thing came after me trying to get you to stop the investigation. Holly knows so much about this thing. The fact of the matter is, you know, she already thinks that it was coming after her to kind of slow her down, and now she I think Jeannie's probably like worried that something might have happened. Even Ralph was taking down the pictures and stuff like that, because it's just a constant reminder for him. It's like we're feeding into this BS that's in Holly's head. It's kind of where he's thinking. But he's like, all right, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to call up around. Hey, have you seen her? Uni? Oh, you haven't? All right, he's calling all the different people. He calls Alec. He calls Howie. No help on those fronts. But even then, he starts getting a little nervous, because every time he calls Holly's phone, straight to voicemail. Weirdly enough, calls Jack, straight to voicemail. He talks to Alec, and Alec is like, yeah, but I don't know. Yesterday at that meeting, she was talking up, you know, her and Jack were striking up quite the conversation. So it's like, all right, let's look into this. They go to Jack's place, see it's covered in a mess. It's like, all right, shit. And, you know, Ralph is like, I hope this is his blood and not hers, because for him, you know, he'll feel guilty about it, because it's like, she was staying at my place. Because it's also the thing of like, Ralph knows that if she went off somewhere with Jack, it's because she didn't want to tell him, because he didn't believe her. He thought she was crazy. So he can probably blame himself a little bit to be like, she didn't turn to me for help, like whatever it is, she didn't want me to know. He even saw the picture from Heath's cousin with the whole bumps on, the markings on his neck. But because I was also wondering, I was like, okay, so is he going to put that two and two together with Tameka? Like, it kind of went down a little bit like I thought, but at the same time, like, completely different results. We'll kind of get to that soon enough. But I love that Alec had called Howie up about it. It's like, oh, you're worried about it's like, oh, like, because he was so dismissive of being like, oh, I'll get to you soon enough, I'm busy. And Alec's like, all right, so this is actually your fault that she's in this situation. Oh, you how about you come down here? Oh, you're like, oh, Holly, he's kind of acting like Howie's acting like it's nothing. And Alec's like, oh, how about you come down here to check out all this blood we found at Jack's place? And then he just hangs up on, because Alec, much like Eunice, or some of the only people some of the people who believed what Holly was saying. And for Alec, it's like, you literally brought her in on this, and you're not even taking responsibility. If something happens to her, that's kind of on you, That's what that comes down to. Since I brought it up, Ralph went to go check on Tameka, and you can tell something's just not quite right, because she's got the baby in her arms. Which is the thing of, like, you just assume, but even when she's holding the baby, she seems on edge and just kind of like twitchy, and quickly puts the baby down, comes back. I was like, oh yeah, beautiful day out here, huh? It's like, yeah, what about you and Jack? It's like, what? It's like, yeah, anything different about Jack? And she's just kind of like, not really, what's this all about? And then Connor's like, yeah, when you followed him outside, what's your conversation about? It's like, yeah, Jack and his regular BS. What I found fascinating is she didn't actually break down any of the thing. Like, Ralph caught part of it, just being like, oh, why don't you hold my baby? Like, that's all the part of it that he caught. So Tameka didn't even feel the need to bring up everything else. And he's like, are you holding anything back? And she's like, what? You think I'm holding back on you? Jeez, Ralph. He's like, no. Have you been threatened? And then she's thinking about the dream she had. And so, that begs the question, was it even 100% a dream? Obviously, no, because I said it wasn't even a dream. It's like, no, obviously it wasn't a dream, because we literally had the same thing with Jeannie. It pops up in your head. It was there. It sent a shiver down her spine. Obviously, she woke up terrified, but obviously it's like, oh, my hubby, my SL has got the baby, but at the same time, it's like, once again, it's like, she didn't show up at the meeting, but I know Ralph kept trying to justify it. It's like, oh yeah, she's got a newborn baby, so that's all she's worried about. The fact of the matter is, it's like, it scared her, and she's just kind of like, she's asking for a transfer, so that thing, like it was trying to get to Jeannie, which it successfully did, it just wasn't able to successfully get to Ralph on either account. It almost got to him with the whole Derek thing, but not quite. But Tameka's like terrified. I'm like, yeah, the horror show, I'm kind of, done with it. So it's like, because she's afraid to admit, like, something's just, but it might not even be a thing that she's cognizantly aware of. To be fair, Jeannie was, at first she was like, what, really? It was kind of like a haze to her, but then it slowly came back. And I think the same thing is there in Tameka's, like, it's a haze, but that feeling, that fear, it stops her, it petrifies her, and then, but like I said, I think if she really, and so like I said, last episode, my thought was like, oh, Tameka was like, oh yeah, Jack had this thing around his neck, and then Josh was gonna be like, wait, what? Like, yeah, something in the back of his neck. Them kind of put two and two together with Heath's cousin, so like I thought that was going to be the case, and ended up not being a situation. But obviously Ralph is kind of, he can tell something's up with Tameka, but it's just kind of like, oh, okay, but he's kind of letting it go, because obviously he is worried about Holly. There's a whole situation with, circling back to Holly, she tried to make an excuse to go to the bathroom, and it's like, yeah, don't make me say. He's like, what? And she's like, I have to go on my period. He's like, oh yeah, let me use your phone because mine's about to die. He makes sure to keep the keys there. I was like, oh shit, there's like no winning in this situation. Holly gets inside, she's trying to get to the window. We see that she has another set of keys. I'm like, what's that going to do for you? Ends up being a very important detail, because she's like, trying to figure it out, and she waits till he kind of gets close to the door, smash it, uses the lid to the toilet to smash the glass. He goes from the back because he thinks she's trying to slip out that way. She runs, hops in the car and drives. I'm like, yeah. He proceeds to shoot at her, because I'm assuming that's the reason why she didn't make any moves sooner, because any attempts to kind of like get away from him under those circumstances, he has a gun he can pull out at any point in time and shoot you. So, but luckily she was able to get away. And obviously, later on, Alec and Ralph end up at the crime scene. And obviously, it's a whole complicated thing, because it's like, Jack has like a 90-minute head start on them, which we saw Jack in the woods. That's what I'm, because I think it's a reflection of his cousin. Remember, like, he put himself in that situation where the cops would end up killing him because Jack tries to put the gun in his mouth, but he can't pull the trigger. And so when he's just laying down, he fires it because I think it's to show like he can fire it, but I think in that moment the creature's trying to prevent him from killing himself. Like, I think Heath's cousin had to like find a like. He had to, and I talked about this at that time. I was wondering if he had to basically find a workaround because it wouldn't let him kill himself. So I think that's what we see in this situation with Jack and finding his way back. Getting picked up by a trucker and dropped off and everything. So. It was also interesting because Eunice had pointed out the fact of the matter is when you look at the direction they were going, like the whole lie was to take them to the barn. I was wondering if it would be a situation of like, oh, they'd actually be going to the barn and he'd be putting her down. No, he ended up taking her. They ended up going 2 hours in the opposite direction. But obviously Holly's filling this whole situation in of like, obviously she understands Jack did what he did because the creature most likely wanted to eliminate her because of all of this. And even the fact is that she doesn't blame Jack. It's like he's struggling. He didn't want to do this, but they kind of have no choice because Ralph is trying to rationalize, why do you think Jack would do this now? Because that was even a conversation between him and Alec. And the thing is that, and once again, showing the fact is Ralph's stubbornness to not open his eyes, but the fact of the matter is literally everyone else is willing to, because you have Alec telling a story of like once he got lost in the woods and they luckily he was found, but he remembers hearing something call out to him, some voice call out his name twice, and he's like, I've never been that scared in my entire life. And then Ralph just says, huh, and then Alec is like, yeah, huh. And the thing of like, it's annoying to them because it's like they're willing to open up their minds, but everyone else around them is so close-minded, especially Ralph. And I love the conversation that goes down between him and Eunice, because Eunice is like, it's like, yeah, I wonder why Jack, because Ralph is like, I wonder why Jack did it. And Eunice is like, she literally just told you why Jack did it, but you so desperately don't want to believe her. You're so desperate to not hear what she literally told you. She told you why Jack was trying to kill her. And then he's kind of like, Ralph is like, oh yeah, there you go, feeding into like the stuff in her hand. Like, thank you. So thanks a lot for that. And I love Eunice's line of, the fact that matters, there's one big difference between you and me. You need all of this to make sense so that you can live with it. Basically meaning that for him, it's like, Ralph made mistakes because he arrested Terry in such a public manner. It turned his whole situation. His actions blew this situation up to what it did, and it led to Terry getting killed. They didn't even bother looking further. And I mean, granted, they gathered up some stuff, but there was, discrepancies that they didn't look into after the fact, after Terry had already died. And, and even, obviously that ended up being a thing even before Terry died. Like, Terry's death makes him feel even more guilty about the situation. Because it was even something like Ralph has said, like, even though he's not so open-minded, like, he ends up talking about the fact is that this whole, ever since the Frankie situation, like, ever since he walked on that murder scene, this whole case hasn't felt right to him. It just doesn't make sense. Like, not all the pieces aren't coming together the way he wants them to. But circling back to it, Eunice is like, you're so desperate to kind of like make some sense of it so you can be like, all right, this and this is what happened. He needs someone to blame, something real to blame and hate. Then you be like, yeah, this is the culprit, so you can live with the choices that you made that have ramifications that led to Terry's death. That guilt is what's driving him, But Eunice is like, I just want this to end. It doesn't matter. If this ends up being a supernatural element to this, I don't give a shit. As long as we can bring this to an end, that's all I care about. So I'm willing to look at every different avenue and possibility, whereas, Ralph isn't, And to the point, because Eunice actually showed Holly a picture of Claude being like, oh, do you know this guy? And she's like, no, but it seems a little... And he was like, yeah, she's not hiding anything, but there was just something she couldn't quite put her finger on. And it didn't correlate in my head until they explained it to me, which I really appreciate that they did. Holly is like, why didn't you tell me? And it's like, what? When you looked at some of the later drawings, in particular, I think the one that Jenny had drawn, it was a picture. The face looked very similar to Claude's, and Ralph is kind of like, well, yeah, it was. But Jeannie's like, You can't be doing that bullshit no more. Like the fact is, like, trying to look for a rational explanation in some shit that's super irrational. So either you get on board or you get the hell out the way. It's essentially kind of what Jeannie's on about. Because at the same time, because for Holly, it's like, you literally saw me struggling. Like, ever since I explained everything to you yesterday about Terry, you at no point brought up the whole Claude thing of like, oh yeah, because yes, he got this information, but he didn't know what to process. He didn't know what it meant. And obviously he's scared to even entertain the thoughts of everything that, Holly's coming up with, like, oh, scratching and this being some other creature and stuff like that. His desperation to kind of keep it rational is that, but that's the sad thing, because he's not willing to open his mind to see things from a different view. So much chaos is ensuing. Like, this thing is going to continue to get away. It will continue to be not stopped. It will be free to kill if you don't change the way you're approaching this whole situation. Hell, he even goes to his therapist. He says, like, yeah, I got to desperately meet with you. Like, but he can't bring himself to talk to his therapist because obviously he's trying to do everything he can to get his job back, because obviously, like, if the therapist is like, yo, if you don't appear to be fit mentally, I won't get you your job. So it's that side of things, but also at the same time, it's like, if he even allows himself to think that, he's like, that I'm tiptoeing down the lane of crazy, but he's like, I'm not crazy. But the fact of the matter is, he starts asking the question, well, do you believe in the devil? Do you believe in evil? Do you, and the guy was kind of like, the guy basically has the same response that Ralph does. For him, it's like, if I wanted to study voodoo magic, I would have studied like voodoo medicine, essentially being like, there's a rational explanation for everything, much like Ralph, but even Ralph is kind of like, that's why he's having his meeting, because he is questioning everything. Like, Jeannie's saying that is kind of like, his mind is already kind of starting to think that way anyway, but he fights it so much. It's more like, I'd say it's like 80-20, I'd say. Like 80% of his brain is kind of being rational about it. The other 20 is kind of opening up to the possibility, but the 80 keeps crushing that 20 and kind of adjust, inflating the balance and stuff like that. But now, like, in this moment, he's going a little top, like, he's kind of capsizing a little bit because of like, it fluctuate in his brain of like, is there a supernatural element to this or not? But even his therapist being like, I can't help you if you won't kind of open up to me. He's like, I know I want to open up to you, believe me, but I know I can't. I have to keep this to myself, because if I don't, you're legitimately going to refer to me as crazy and I'll never get my job back, essentially. So that's a lane which that whole situation is kind of going down. So I didn't talk about it either, but I love the fact is that Andy shows up and it's like, and she's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, I probably should have called. And she has this look on his face. He's like, but she smiles. And he's like, oh, you almost had me there. And he hugged him. I was like, oh my God, that's super adorable. Because Andy did some investigating on his own. He already talked about that, but he wants to be a part of this investigation because I think he's starting to see the weird sides of things, but I don't think he's completely going down the lane that Holly has. But I think he's willing to have an open mind about it. We'll see, but I'm curious to kind of dive into like him potentially being a part of the team and everything. So there's that. Then there's even that interesting element at the end of the episode where you have Holly dreaming about that moment, and it's like, oh, I got the key, Holly, and she doesn't have the other key, and showing that like that gamble of hers could have easily have gone super wrong, ending with Jag opening the door and killing her. So the thing is that her mind playing tricks on her, just like obviously just, PTSD, reliving that moment of just realizing like it could have easily gone the other way, or is this the thing getting inside of her head and messing with her, being like, oh, like you came this close to meeting your end, you just don't even realize it. That's, kind of another lane to kind of potentially go down. But then another side of this episode that's interesting is the fact of the matter is that Gloria has to go back to work. Side note, I've been meaning to bring this up, but I keep forgetting to. But the actress who plays Gloria, her name is it Julianne Nicholson. One of the things I best know her from, I've never watched a lot of the show, but I kept thinking like, why do I recognize her? She was in she was one of the detectives on Law and Order CI, Criminal Intent, because obviously, Criminal Intent did that weird thing where it would bounce back and forth between two sets of partners. It's a whole thing. Like one would be like Chris Noth at one point in time, and even Vincent D'Onofrio, but also Jeff Goldblum. I forgot that I constantly forget that he was on that show for a little while. But regardless, like, she was one of the, like, lead detectives on the show for a while. That's kind of what correlates in my head. Like I said, I went on a bit of a tangent. Circling back to it, Gloria's trying to go back to work, which I was like, okay, like, I couldn't remember if they'd ever brought up what she actually does for work. But the fact is that she kind of has no choice because they're literally running out of food because they kind of have no money, so she has to go back to work. And not the easiest thing considering everything. So it seems like her job is she sells houses, but obviously she's selling to one particular couple in this episode, and they just kind of keep giving her the stares. And it's like, all right, the dude keeps asking questions. The lady kind of doesn't really say too much, but the dude keeps asking questions, and she's like, okay, let me stop you right there. Yeah, it's me, and kind of goes on like a bit of a, this whole thing, and they're like, what? No, it's kind of, they're being like, oh, it's not fair. It's like, shut up. She doesn't have, like, it's like the way you're looking at her like, oh, this is that lady, but you're trying to keep up this pretense of being nice and stuff like that. Because she'd even been like, yeah, like, you can admit to whoever it is that you're going to go blab to after this that you did meet me. And she kind of kept going on and on. It's like, the fact of the matter is, if you're willing to put like money down in this house, I'll let you take a picture with me and everything, and you can say, yeah, you met with this crazy lady. And the dude was like, that's enough, and she just kind of walks away. He's like, yeah, so here's another room. And obviously later on they want to sue her for emotional distress or something like that. Just get the hell out of here. And her boss is even saying, like, I should have never brought you back onto, it was too soon. And, Gloria's like, well, when would not have been too soon? And she's like, there probably never would have been a right time for you to come back. It's like, what you should do? You need money, then you and the girls, you need to sell the house and leave. But obviously for Gloria, it's like, this is the house that Terry raised the girls in. Like, this is where we raised our family. I'm not going to sell that house, Which I think is interesting because, like, obviously she let herself say it, like, last episode, like, maybe Terry did it, but now you're also willing to... because also it's about the girls, because obviously they have good memories of their dad, plus this is their childhood home. This is... she's not going to let people take that away from them, which even her boss was kind of like, you know what? The fact of the matter is, people have, should basically, why should you make it easy on them by you leaving all the shit they basically put you through? Like, you're kind of owed some payback, which, Gloria decides that she's going to start suing everybody, because this way she can make sure she can get some money, because otherwise her job's going to be nearly impossible to do, because she's got to deal with so much. But also it's a middle finger to everyone for everything that they put her through, all the suffering, that her and her kids have to kind of deal with on a daily basis because of this whole situation. So that's a very interesting development to all this. And another little side note, obviously we have Claude walking away from his job, because for him it's like, yeah, he just hasn't felt like himself in a while, which once again, we've never been in the process of the transformation, because we never got the insight on, was Terry acting a little weird, in that process, in that time process where the El Cuco was transforming into him. And like I said, we see that Claude seems like he's off, and it seems like it is a byproduct of it. So like I said, it just seems like, whether they realize it or not, like, I guess it kind of, like, when it's taken on your form, it's pulling a little bit from you. Like, it's kind of taking a little something from you when it's using your DNA to transform it, and like, you can feel it. You don't know what it is, but you just you feel all, off kilter, not fully calibrated or something. So we don't really know and understand the ins and outs of that, but like, that's kind of been my thought process before, just because Claude has kind of been a little all over the place. At first I was thinking like it had already switched with him, but like, obviously no, because obviously what it's getting Jack to do, it needs protection while it's, in a process of transforming and stuff like that. So I am very, very interested to see ultimately where all this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. Things are starting to shift, and now that Jack's kind of been exposed, and obviously like everyone's kind of like, yo, where's Jack? They've got like, cops looking for him and stuff like that. So now that thing doesn't have him as like a secret ally anymore. So what's it going to do? Is it going to straight up just kill him to get rid of him? Or what further uses will it have for him? I mean, obviously Jack is at that point where it's probably like, he's going to go down that route of like, I need to end it all. Like, I could end it on my own terms. So maybe he's going to find a similar means of kind of dealing with the situation. We'll ultimately have to wait and see. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.